Three things to know about the Palestinian Nakba of 1948. Nakba means catastrophe. It was the catastrophic destruction of the Palestinian homeland and the expulsion of nearly 80% of the total population after the Zionists have destroyed hundreds of Palestinian towns and villages throughout historic Palestine. This created what they called the Palestinian refugee problem, which continues until today. Most of those doing the fighting in the West Bank, in Gaza and elsewhere are actually descendants of those very refugees. In other words, you can't look at the Nakba and pretend that it's a historic event that had a beginning and an end 76 years ago. It's an ongoing event, not only because the refugees are still demanding their right of return, which is, by the way, enshrined under international law, but because Israel is still using the exact same practices of ethnically cleansing Palestinians, whether in these kind of wholesale slaughters and ethnic cleansing as what we see happening in the Gaza Strip right now, or in what others call incremental genocide, which is the process of destroying Palestine or the remainder of that Palestine, one house at a time, one village at a time, one refugee camp at a time. The first and most important thing you must remember that Palestinians did not flee. Most history books, especially those written in the West, keep making a reference to Palestinians fleeing or being expelled. Who has decided on that coinage? Historians have an exact answer for it. But we, when we read about the Nakba, must remember that this particular coinage was created to give Israel some sort of a leeway to say that, well, we didn't really expel everybody, some of them have fled. But think about it this way. If Israel comes to a group of villages, or the Zionists arrive to a group of villages somewhere near Jerusalem, near Lid, near Haifa, or in southern Palestine, and start killing people in large numbers, massacres, like Deir Yassin, like Tantura, like Beit Daraz, and many other massacres that killed thousands of Palestinians. And they start killing people systematically, from door to door, from house to house. What do the other people in that village do? What is the natural thing for any human being to do under these circumstances? To protect his family or her family, and that's what people did. So they would take their kids and they would run away to another village, and they would wait until the Zionists arrive and kill yet more Palestinians. Then they would flee and flee and flee until that's how we ended up with the Palestinian refugee problem. But in actuality, those people do not lose their rights because they are running away from massacres. Their rights are still enshrined under international law. So this little caveat that some of them may have fled or have fled is actually designed to give Israel the benefit of the doubt. You're not a terrible, horrible genocidal state, but rather some of those Palestinians may have been coward enough that they fled from massacres committed against other Palestinians. Number two, the Nakba did not stop. The Nakba is what we call a Nakba al-Mustamirra, the continued Nakba. The original plan to evacuate Palestine or to push Palestinians out of their homeland by the Zionists continues to be carried out in earnest everywhere in Palestine, whether against those in the West Bank, especially in East Jerusalem, but also in the Hebron area or in all of Gaza as we see today. Israelis are speaking openly about pushing 2.3 million Palestinians into the Sinai desert. The same genocide mentality, the same genocide language, it hasn't changed. So the Nakba is not an event in time, but rather it is an ongoing event. And the only way to end the Nakba is to end these kind of practices which Israel continues to carry out. Number three, Palestinian refugees, the Palestinian right of return remain the center of all issues. For a long time, we have been told if you speak about the refugees, you are a radical, you are an extremist, because you do not want peace between and coexistence between the Jews and the Arabs, as if demanding the implementation of international law regarding the right of return for Palestinian refugees, particularly UN Resolution 194, is an extremist act. It is not. It is the very center of the so-called conflict, of the problem, of the crisis. And the Palestinian refugees know it, and they continue to fight for their rights. So do not engage in any conversation about Palestine or the Palestinian people or the so-called solution to this ongoing so-called conflict without talking about the refugees as the most important and center of any discussion about Palestine. I hope this helps a little. If you want any more information about this issue, please go to PalestineChronicle.com. Thanks for listening.